Welcome to the Kuadrant Community Call of December 17th, 2024, the last one of this year. We don't have many items on the agenda, but DJ is with us, so there will be fun. Feel free to add something if you want to talk about it. One thing I want to do for the new year is at least to have to invite somebody like Roy from the 3Skill team to give us some, their experience with using Kuadrant, and actually productization. Oh, I can't speak anymore. Production environment. Thank you, Greg. Yes. I think that's interesting and valid upstream. Anyway, there's two things I did add. I was just wondering if there were any preliminary interesting findings from the hackathon related work that are, valid for this call. One thing I was thinking about, for example, was the whole roles, setting up roles. I know various customers are asking about this. I know Didier struggled with setting up that correctly. And I know that I think Rachel and David and Adam worked on that a bit, investigated. Is there anything already to say about that? What preliminary findings? Take it away.
Yeah. So I set up a document that is shared within the hackathon document as well, explaining what is that about and the a proposition basically. So just like a brief of what that is about is we are basing all the personas on Gateway API, what they suggest on the 3-tier example. And that would be the infrastructure provider, the cluster operators, plural, and the app developers. And I fix a kind of like a table, which is extending the ones that they are, which is actually provided by Gateway API documentation, and extending their networking objects with our Kuadrant objects like policies. Now that I'm actually looking at it, I forgot to add the Kuadrant object as well, which I'm going to add it soon, after the call probably. And the idea is add this to the Kuadrant documentation about as kind of like a suggestion of like what we recommend in terms of like permissions. And since this is actually super opinionated and every single production environment varies, and if anyone is trying Kuadrant, they probably already have like a lot of users and they will actually figure out how to implement those, how to apply those roles to those users. We just not enforce it. We just recommend it. But in our development, like we use like makefile targets to set up our development environment. I think it's actually useful to start adding some targets to switch the context of an app developer, cluster operator, and an infrastructure provider. So when we do the make local setup, it installs the operators and the different CRDs and dependencies with the different contexts. And that would be kind of like the end of that hackathon project.
Okay, makes sense. Anything from you, Rachel? I don't know who else is on the call.
Sure. So myself, Adam, and Dave have investigated a bit further, and we are essentially now trying to see if we can hook into how OpenShift does their current. So there's two kind of proxies. There's the kube ORBAC proxy, which is like the kind of the personas and all that kind of stuff. But then Prometheus also has a label proxy, which is essentially when a person makes a query to the Prometheus API, you can like implement certain standards that you want to have in place. So certain labels have to be in place, or there's a few different things that you can do. So OpenShift does this currently for the monitoring. So if you try to look at metrics that you are not in the namespace for, you will not be able to see it. So we're trying to do the same thing for our metrics. Some of our metrics don't have the same label or name. So it's called namespace essentially. The OpenShift one looks for. So where you're able to do in Prometheus is called like essentially relabeling. So you can change the labels after the fact. So like you don't have to change them at the source. You change them kind of either at the scraping time or later on. So we can make our metrics have the same label and hopefully be able to hook up into the OpenShift stuff. We're hoping that it will work for everything, but it may not, but it'll definitely work for things like Grafana and that kind of stuff. We're kind of looking at to see how do we implement it with the console plugin. So if a user uses the console plugin and they don't have access to things, they should not be able to see it. So there's kind of a few different workings that we're looking at right now.
And how much of this is transportable to Kubernetes?
It should all be, I would say. So, well, with the OpenShift stuff, we'll probably have to implement our own version of monitoring, or we'll have to recommend how to do it if a person has their own monitoring stack for Kubernetes. But it's like the Prometheus label proxy, they just have to set up themselves and implement their own label, whatever they want to call it. Like there's different criteria. But so like you can implement it in Kubernetes. It's just we're trying to not have to duplicate that for OpenShift, that we can just hook up into the one that's already there, but you can do that for any cluster.
Right. Thanks. Yeah, and one thing, thinking about what you were saying, Didier, is I'd say we don't do anything with the top layer, like the, what is it called, the infrastructure provider. That would basically be Google, or like, I don't think we focus much on that at all, but maybe I'm wrong there. I do think there's a consensus that we should, like, the best we can do is just to provide some guidance, right? Documentation, make it easy to get something set up, maybe in that respect, but at the same time, yeah, it's not on us in the end, really. It's just, we just have to make sure that that's possible with what we deliver, but it should be, because in the end, we are just delivering custom resources that you can give permissions for or not. Or is it not that simple? Am I missing something?
It could be, but I think the exercise of us, like in development, we should care about this, because then
That's a fair point.
when people are trying out in simulating like the prod security team, and they don't expect just you to give like admin, like infrastructure provider admin permissions to all the users, So I reckon that we are going to recommend, as Gateway API does, in the sense like, okay, so we model and design this based on these personas. We should at least do the same. And in our development tools, install and everything and switching context as, and that's it, but not part of like, like giving like extra permissions on our Kuadrant operator or something, or our methods of installation. No, we just, communicate and we adopt it ourselves, but we don't enforce it.
Okay, I made some notes. Please feel free to edit if what I put there doesn't make sense completely. Okay. Anybody else wants to say anything about this subject? Then it's Christmas. Oh, no, not yet. The other subject was one of the items from the retro, and I thought it was very practical, and I wonder if people have opinions on that. And Jim is already on PTO, but it was about squashing commits and how we shouldn't do that, basically. And I think I agree, and I wonder if somebody, if there's somebody who doesn't agree on that. I mean, there might be times when that makes sense, but most of the time it doesn't. And why is it always DG who raises his hand? DG, talk, go.
Yeah, I'm just excited that it's my last week, So you're not gonna see me like for a month. So I need to talk. So squashing commits, this is actually comes like in every other team. I mean, it is useful. I mean, like no one wants to see or want to review a pull request that is going to be fix up. Yeah,
But that's
like
not the same as squashing commits.
And if it means like squashing commits in that sense, like we order the pull request commits, so it's easy for our colleagues to review our work. I'm actually all about that, but squashing to a single commit, sometimes it's like you lose like the context and the motive of and the history of like that pull request. So sometimes it's actually useful why there was like 5 comments instead of 1 in a change or in a feature.
Yes, agreed. It should be used with thought. It should not just be like squash everything down and remove the whole history. And also when multiple people contribute, that gets lost too. You want to make the history as easily readable as possible for your future self and future others, right? So it should, are we doing it too much? Do we have any automated settings that we just do that automatically? No, we don't know.
So you get the option. You get the option
Right.
when in most of our repos, you get the option of like squash or like rebase and merge.
Right.
But sometimes when it's like, like 100 commits and it's all like, most of them, they are like just nonsense of fix-ups and stuff like, those commits need to be squashed before you just set the pull request to review.
Hey, Laura, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back and talking about Git commits. Yeah, I left a comment. I was looking at the retro board, and so I have probably strong-ish opinions on this. I agree that the fix-up commits, like that they should be squashed into like whatever other commit that it's sensible to put them into. But I don't agree with them like having the option to just squash everything on merge. So like I wonder if we could switch that off in GitHub, and like if you're gonna be squashing things, you're gonna do it locally and in a logical fashion, and that's probably the best way to retain like a good history. Also, I would always do co-authoring. Like if I pair programmed with someone on a change, like I would add them as a co-author on the commit. So the reason I do that is because they would also have context, so it's like accurate history. But if you do the squash in GitHub, you're going to put everything together under maybe 2 or potentially 3 people, and then that history isn't accurate because they may not have worked on one of the pieces. So I think like manually fixing up locally makes sense, but not the squash feature in GitHub.
I will have a look if that's some setting that I can switch off for the whole org. Anybody else has? Thank you, Laura. Anybody else has anything to say on the subject? Okay, well then we're done with the agenda, and I got nothing else to say than to wish you very happy holidays, rest, and Laura, you just have to continue working, okay? Because you just came back.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even going to take Christmas Day off.
Correct.
Nah, what are you missing? I'll see you all in January.
Correct.
Should we cancel the next 2 meetings?
Yes, we cancel the next 2 meetings. I will remove them from the calendar.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, everybody, take care.
All right. Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays or PTO, whatever you're doing. Cheers.
Goodbye.
Cheers.
Hey, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.